Thank you for joining me for episode number 4 of the Next Bite of Life podcast. My name is Kem Kem. Today we're going to talk about a different side of Barcelona. I know when most people visit Barcelona, they talk about the Sagrada Familia and the Ramblas and every other thing that the Gothic quarter. But I want to tell you that there's a different side of Barcelona that you probably haven't discovered. There are new things happening all the time. I got a chance to visit Barcelona and discover this new side as part of a press trip with the tourist office of Barcelona. And the place that we actually went to was called Poblenou. Poblenou means new village in Catalan, and it's a part of Barcelona that most people don't know about, at least most tourists don't know about. But it's a pretty hip, happening place, and I think it's one of the places that you should definitely visit when you make a trip down to Barcelona. Poblenou used to be an industrial part of town. It was places where the manufacturing plants and the textile factories were, and a lot of workers from other parts of Spain came to stay there and work at the factories. So it was kind of like a low class kind of place. And so it was abandoned later on when the industrial companies went out of business. So it became derelict, and the city basically forgot about it. It enjoyed a revitalization thanks to the 1992 Olympics, when basically every part of Barcelona was redone. There used to be train tracks that ran along Poblenou. It separated like the city from the beach, and in preparation for the Olympics, the train tracks were actually taken out, and all of a sudden, the beach was available to the city. Prior to that, if you lived in Barcelona and you wanted to go out to the beach for the day, you had to drive, or go out of town 50, 60 miles to places like Lloret, de Mar, to enjoy like your beach activities. But all of a sudden, here we are. Barcelona has its own beaches, and they're actually quite lovely. We got to see many parts of it, including the Barceloneta beach, and it's beautiful. So it's nice that there are water activities that you can do, which we actually had a chance to do. I didn't do any of that because, I don't like the water. But we had a chance to kayak and paddle surf and sail, and the rest of the group actually had a great time. And from what they said, it was wonderful, and I missed something, but I didn't think I missed too much. There was somebody else who didn't go out in the water along with me, and with our guide, Chomi, he actually took us to the Parc de la Ciutadella, which is one of the neighboring places around Poblenou, so we got to discover the park, which I hadn't gone to the last time I was there. Anyway, Poblenou is a happening hipster kind of place, and the revitalization that the city is doing includes a new flea market called the Encants Flea Market. And I totally love this place because it's sort of like a huge flea market that you can buy anything from like used secondhand clothing to new fixtures for your bathroom and your kitchen. And it is amazing. It accomplishes like an indoor-outdoor feel. Like you have the fresh air, and it's wide open space, and it feels great. And then you have this really industrial-looking glass top to it, so it's all mirrors, and it feels cool, and it kind of blends in well with the city. The part about Poblenou that I really like is that once the train tracks were taken out, the city made an effort to like have new companies, like design companies, design schools, photographers, artists. They kind of made the old buildings into newer spaces. They used the same place to to make like their offices and their schools. So they didn't tear down the old things, which would have happened anywhere else in the world for the most part, because people just love tearing old things down and making new spaces. So it's kind of like really nice to see that they made new things out of old things, out of old buildings. And it gives it an incredible kind of unique feel, but it also still blends in well because it's still part of the whole. I mean, all of Barcelona is a pretty artistic, progressive design. Like the buildings are awesome. Like everyone is distinct and it's different, and they try to outdo each other. And Poblenou is unique by itself because it has its own feel, but it also still blends in well with the rest of the place. I really enjoy the visit. There's a section of it called District 22 or Art 22, which is so unique by itself too, and it has really cool buildings like the Torre Agba. It's a skyscraper that just dominates the landscape, and it looks like the Gherkin in London. It was designed by John Novell, and it's all sleek glass, and the colors are red and blue, the Barcelona colors, and you can see it from pretty much anywhere around there. When the city made an effort to build a new place, they made sure that everything that was done is sort of like things that kind of goes well. Like when I talk about R22, for instance, they have an urban plan that's in place right now to have companies that are innovative and have things that are useful to society. They want them to come in and make their own place within the space. And part of the things that I saw that we're doing was testing live. They use the city as a live not scapegoat, but they use the city as a live place to test out ideas. Like, for instance, I saw something where they have sensors like in the parking spots. So basically, like, it can tell you right up to the second what parking space is available at any given time. So that gets sent in and gets sent into a central place. And if you have an app and you're wired in, you could actually find out what spots. I mean, just think about how wonderful that is to be able to stop driving around for miles looking for a parking spot. Now, if somebody could make it so that when you see the parking spot and you're the first person to see it, if it reserves it for you, now that would be cool. So you don't drive there and then find out that somebody beat you to it. But another thing that I saw was like they actually have like sensors also on like dumpsters. So let's say the dumpster was full or was getting to it's the point where it needs to be dumped out. It sends a message to the company that's responsible for that so they can take it out. Things like that make it really interesting. And also the fact that you're now facing the beach, a lot of the places makes it quite attractive, and the real estate got a big bump because of that. And I wouldn't mind living there. I mean, there could be worse places to stay than being at the beach and having all these really cool buildings. I saw one building that was like a giant piece of cake, and then it seemed like somebody had taken a slice out of it. So basically it was built like in a semicircle, and then you had the view out to the beach. Now that would be kind of awesome. I would love to be there. So there are interesting things like that. There's also like the D Hub, which is the Design Museum of Barcelona, and it sits like next to the Torre Agba, which is on the Avenue Diagonal. It even has its own Rambla, the Rambla de Poblenou, and it runs from like the Diagonal and goes all the way out to the beach, and that is like the main commercial section. So it's sort of like when you go to the Rambla, like in the center of Barcelona, you have this same thing happening around Poblenou. So, it's one of those places that you think maybe I should invest in, or maybe I should go and check it out before it becomes like another place that's just overrun with people. And so that's why I suggest that you actually check it out when you go to Barcelona, because it's definitely worth it. Just the flea market alone is just worth it, because it's just incredible to see. It's hard to describe, but when you see the pictures, like if you go to nextbiteoflife.com, you can see the pictures that goes along with this podcast, where I show you the places, what it used to look like on one side of the street, and what it looks like on the other side of the street with the market. You've got a tram station right there, so it's very convenient. And I think the flea market is open right now 3 days a week. But it's incredible the amount of things that you can actually buy. On the top floor is where the food stalls are. And they have really, really good food. And we went to this place, I can't think of the name, it's like Fresnet something. And it had the best calamari legs, like fried calamari legs that I'd ever had. And it was huge portions. It was like $4. But we were like two people that ate full on, and we were full by the time we finished it. So I recommend checking out the food court if you go there. And from the top, you can see views of the the Torre Agba. You can see the Torre Agba, which just looks like it has different names, and some people call it the suppository because it kind of reminds you of a giant suppository. There are also I call it the gherkin because it reminds me of the one in London, but you can sort of see why some people call it some other names that I just would rather not say on the podcast. Anyway, it's worth checking out. That's one area of Barcelona that you should definitely discover if you go visit. The other place, we actually also did a walking tour of the Gothic Quarter, and that was so cool because it gives you like little insights of the places that you just miss when you walk around by yourself. We had a guide, his name was Xavier, and he was just delightful. He gave us little hints and little history about the places that we saw. When you go by yourself to a city, you're just so into taking pictures and you don't really know what the history behind it is. But actually, with the walking tour, I really got to discover little parts of Barcelona that I didn't know before. And it made me wonder if I would have had, as wonderful, a more wonderful experience than when I visited by myself with my husband last year. I mean, the way I felt, I was like, okay, Barcelona was fine, but, I just didn't get it. But this time, actually listening to him and seeing the buildings and having the history behind it, it made it like a little bit more special. And I sort of saw like what people think, and I get what they say when they're like, oh, Barcelona is awesome. Well, I was like, it's okay. But now I'm like, oh yeah, I agree with you. It's totally awesome. So anyway, it changes your mind. So consider doing a tour the next time. I know I will, because I really enjoyed the one we did. We also got to visit the Museum of National Art of Catalonia. That was such a treat for me. I love museums and I love art, and we got to see part of the Roman art section. And we also got a visit to the restoration area. It's too much to talk about here in the same podcast, so I'm actually going to do a different post separately by itself, because I really enjoyed seeing the MNAC as it's called. The actual walk up to it is enough. It's worth doing. You can either cheat and come around the back and through the parking lot, or you can actually do the walk, which is what we did, all the way from the street, way up all those stairs to get to the top. But once you're at the top, you have a fabulous view of the city. It's just breathtaking. There's no other way to put it. It's just beautiful. So it's definitely worth the climb up, and I appreciate the fact that they let me take my pictures as I went all the way up to the top. Once we got to the top and we were done with the museum, we had a bike ride through the city, through Manchuk, and it was absolutely wonderful. The bike leader was so cool, and he was so relaxed as he weaved his way through the traffic and everything. And I was just like, I was a little nervous starting at first, but it actually worked out really well. He made me feel so good, and he was so confident that you couldn't help but be just as confident as he was when you rode. And the bike lanes in Barcelona is just so, they're big. There's room for everyone. And, it's separate from the car lane. So it's a great way to get around the city and actually discover more of it. So you can go, I think it has something like 700 kilometers of bike lane, if I remember correctly what they told us. So you don't feel like you're going to be stuck with all the people. Of course, you have to come off the lanes every so often and mix with the regular pedestrians. So that was a little terrifying at some points, but it wasn't so bad at all. We stayed, we stayed at the Barcelona Sands Hotel. And I got to tell you, it was wonderful. It's a 4-star hotel, and it's on top of the Sands station, which is like the main train station. It was so convenient because when I left, it was just a direct shoot, boom, to the airport, and I was there. I intend to stay there again because it was really wonderful. The staff was great. The breakfast was wonderful. The views from the room were just insanely good. And I highly recommend that place if you find yourself in Barcelona. Now, the food. That's the last thing I need to talk to you about. It's just incredible. The food is just fantastic. Some of the places we ate at, I was just gobsmacked because I just I gorged myself on food. And, some of us were saying that we've gained at least 5 kilos just from the trip alone. We had wonderful Iberico ham from Andrew, and we had great food at El Cangrejo Loco. We had a fabulous view of the water, and once again, go to the website at nextbiteoflight.com and you can see some of the pictures of the food that we had. You'll just love it. Anyway, so that's some of the highlights of Barcelona that I think you should definitely check out the next time you make a trip down there. It's definitely worth your time to check out Poblenou. It is newer, it is hip, it is happening. It's going to be fantastic, and it already is fantastic. And it's sort of like the Silicon Valley of Barcelona. So basically, you have the Silicon Valley of Barcelona, and they have the Poblenou, which everybody, used to refer to as the Manchester of Barcelona. But now they stand in their own right, and they are wonderful, and they're hip, and they're happening, and you should check it out before it becomes the touristy place that every place else has deserve it. Every place has been. So thank you for joining me today for this podcast. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you've discovered another little part of Barcelona. If you have any questions, please feel free to email me at nextbiteoflife@gmail.com. My name is Kem, and I'll see you on the next podcast. I hope everybody has a good day.